So we've got about 15 to 20 minutes here, or slightly longer. And I would ask you to keep your questions relatively economical and to the point, and you can either address them to either one of our debaters, or we'll get both to answer the questions. So I'm seeing a hand over here, and then I'll go back there. Yes, sir. Okay. So the gentleman... Okay. The gentleman says he's not a scholar, but his question I think to both of you is, I'll start with you, Professor Brummett, is there enough art to pay for, I guess, to justify the lives that have been lost in the name of religion?
Well, the proposition, of course, asks about culture. It doesn't ask about art, which is one of the points I wanted to make. Well, but the shirt you have on, that's culture, you know. Well, it's a wonderful shirt. It's just a marvelous thing, and I'm better for it. I don't think you can tot all that up, because you'll never get it all on the same scale. Let me rephrase the question, which is it the same thing about religion that's producing the Inquisition that also produces art and culture? Is it the same thing? If so, then that question makes more sense. If it's different aspects of religion, then I think we would be justified in saying, let's try to work against whatever it was that produced the Inquisition, and let's try to encourage whatever it was that produces art and culture, including your very fine shirt, and separate that out. I'll let Mr. Hitchens.
Okay, Mr. Hitchens,
Well, yes. I mean, I think I'm an answer is particularly exacted of me, because if there's a confusion here, it must be my fault. I didn't want to set up a false dichotomy between religion and culture, or, I'm sorry, culture and religion here, in the sense of saying they were mutually exclusive, any more than I would say that you couldn't have one without the other. What I hoped we would do, certainly what I hope we've provoked people to thinking about, is to find out what the best contingencies are in which culture flourishes, to see if faith is one of those, and if it is not, if it is found that culture can be produced without faith and without the political systems and social systems that go with it, most of them tending to be tyrannical, then that would be a very great thing. And that's why I adduced the example of the Parthenon. Because, for example, I've been to many of the other monuments of antiquity. I've been to Babylon, I've been to Baalbek, to Karnak, I've been to the Great Zimbabwe ruins in Africa. So it's very hard to visit them without being acutely aware they were built by slaves. Somehow it shows. They're built to impose, to impress, to show who's in charge. And that, for me, takes away their cultural contribution a little bit, just a little bit, but an important bit, in the way the Parthenon does not. The Parthenon is light and open, and is the work of many hands directed by superb cultural and artistic producers. If we take a very pressing contemporary example, what would you say, I'll answer my own question, but what would you say the culture of Persia used to be best known for? What do we owe to Persia in terms of human culture? Well, the poetry of Hafez and of Omar Khayyam, quite probably the discovery of sherbet, the making of wonderful wine in Shiraz, one of the finest wines ever produced, the games of backgammon and chess. If we can have shirts, Professor, and I agree with you that culture is very wide, I think we have to include these as human achievements too. Now, all of these are actually specifically negated by the idea that Iran needs faith in order to have a culture. all of the wonderful things that I've just mentioned, and they're by no means exhaustive, are repressed, disfigured, sent into exile as far as is possible by those who know they are right, by those who already know that they have all the information that they need, by those who already have all the moral authority that could possibly be needed. This is a terrible situation, and it's made more terrible by the increasingly likely prospect that people who know they're right, this to address the perfection question, Professor Brummett, are about to become the possessors of apocalyptic weaponry, or if they're not already. Because then we really will find out whether culture can survive religion or not. And it already is a very pressing question for our time.
Okay. Thank you for the question, and thank both great answers. By the way, if I may speak as a member of the tribe, one of the cultural, you forgot the two cultural contributions of the Persians, Christopher Hitchens, romance and pistachios as well.
Oh, right. The pistachio industry is now run by Mr. Rafsanjani himself. Private monopoly of one of the clerics.
In the green shirt over there, yes.
Mr. Hitchens, since I have the mic, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I think we all really appreciate it. I'd like to ask, since you have spoken and written in the past about the value of transcendent experience, obviously religion and transcendent experience seems to be tied to a great degree. And I'm wondering, in terms of the cultural impacts of transcendent experience, what do we risk losing, or do we risk losing anything by potentially losing religion? Thank you.
Well done. Good. Okay.
Well, you rather invite, thank you, by the way, for your kind words, you rather invite my answer, I think, here, which is certainly, I would not find trustworthy somebody who professed themselves to be indifferent to the extent of saying that they'd never had a spiritual or an ecstatic moment. I think that people who would be indifferent to the combination of landscape, music, love, possibly the wines of Shiraz, all the things celebrated, in fact, by the great Omar Khayyam, I would find that person to be somewhat null. I would suspect them of an indifference that I wouldn't want to find in a friend or in anyone with intellectual curiosity. But I think there's a huge difference between acknowledging the idea of a cosmos that's larger than we can know or ever will know or can imagine, and the distant refraction of that idea through experiences, whether they're eros or landscape or poetry, the ecstatic. There's all the difference in the world between that and regularly prostrating yourself or sinking to your knees and repeating an incantation in the hope that the more you say it, the more true it's likely to become. That, by contrast, seems to me to be completely banal. Someone just sent me for a review a very interesting book called Confessions of a Buddhist Atheist. Someone who, very serious person who spent a long time as a Buddhist, meditating, practicing, proselytizing. Buddhists in theory don't do that, but they do in fact. Around the world, understands it very well, got a lot out of it, but says, it can only go on contributing now if it gives up a couple of ideas. One of them being the idea of Dharma, the sort of obliteration of the mind, especially of that as being a good idea. And second, the very cruel and fatalistic concept of reincarnation. Again, I think without those two things, it would hardly be recognizable as Buddhism. But clearly there's something worth saving from a cult or a movement, let's not call it a religion if you don't want to, that does believe in meditation, that believes in intense reflection. I think it's quite possible to divorce that from the superstitious, from a belief in the supernatural, and above all from incantation through prayer of the influence of a supreme dictator, of a sort of celestial Kim Jong-Il, a dear leader who can't be got rid of.
Thank you, Mr. Hitchens. If I can beg the indulgence of... we are coming to the end of our scheduled time. If it's okay with you two, the debaters, if we take 2 more questions and then have closing statements, is that okay with you, Mr. Hitchens?
I would honestly rather have more questions.
Okay. Well, then, meaning how long can you join us for? It's your call.
I'm actually not in that much of a hurry.
Okay, well, fantastic.
I feel
And
like-
Professor Brummett? Well, then we can take more questions. Is there I see a couple of people. I'm just wondering if there's any women who have questions to maintain some sort of gender balance. Yes, over here. And then I'll come up there.
This could be for either of you, but in particular, Mr. Hitchens, I was trying to imagine being in the position of somebody who would argue that religion has been a positive force on our culture. And I was trying to imagine what they might ask you. And what I was thinking was, well, if we don't have something like religion or perhaps a heaven or something like that to believe in or inspire us to do well in this world, maybe to inquire after things, what does do that for us if we don't have religion for you?
Yes, indeed. I mean, just as I think that if you say, as I do, that religion, the morality, ethics, morality, can't be derived from proclamations from on high. You can't get them in 10-tablet form. That belief of mine surely obliges me to say, well then, how do we get them? Because we clearly do have the requirement for an answer to the question, how do we live a just life? What are our responsibilities to others? What would the good life be? And why is it that these questions are important to us? Look, I think the answer is a fairly easy one. I hope not deceptively so. Human solidarity requires it of us. We wouldn't be here having this conversation if we didn't have in our species an innate need to help others, not just for our own sake, though helping others can, of course, lead to benefits for the helper, but because it's positively a pleasurable thing to do. Now, there's no need for any belief in the supernatural, in my opinion, to justify that. It's a sine qua non of being human. Civilizations that don't do this, or species that don't do it or can't do it, simply won't develop. We're only half a chromosome away, but we can still laugh at the chimpanzees because they never got to the stage where they could respect any unit higher than their immediate family, and not even that very well, and that out of a very blunt self-interest. We are able, by using what I won't call altruism, but the need to help, the need to give blood, for example, something I like to do. I can't do it anymore, unfortunately, but I do it for various reasons. One, I have a rare blood group, and one day I might need some myself. In fact, I recently did. Two, I'm not really giving anything away. Someone else is getting a pint, but the pint I give them will be replenished with a nice cup of hot tea in a very short time. And third, because it makes me feel happy. It makes me feel good to do a stranger a favor. That may be simple, but I hope it's not simplistic.